You like to think evil is out there in dictators, criminals, or those people whose faces you see on the news. But what if the seed of that evil is already inside you? What if every time you look away from the reality of your own death, you help water that seed? Imagine this. You're at a funeral. You feel that uneasy tightness in your chest, that thought you quickly shove aside one day. Me too. You distract yourself, talk about the weather, scroll your phone, but something happens in that act of pushing death away. You don't just avoid discomfort, you open a door through which fear can quietly twist itself into blame, contempt, even cruelty. Ernest Becker argued that the denial of death is not just a personal coping strategy. It's a hidden engine behind some of the worst things humans do to each other. In this video, we're going to explore how your fear of mortality can be transformed into the very evil you think you're fighting. We'll uncover how we create monsters to carry the weight of our fear, how we transfer our own darkness into them, and how the refusal to face death keeps us trapped in this cycle. By the end, you'll have a set of mental tools, not to eradicate evil out there, but to disarm its roots inside you. Because if Becker was right, then the most urgent battlefield isn't the world out there. It's your own relationship with death. Becker's first and most unsettling claim is this: the denial of death is the root of much human destructiveness. Every human knows, whether we like it or not, that our bodies are fragile. Time is finite, and the end is inevitable. But facing this truth directly can feel unbearable. So, we build what Becker called immortality projects, elaborate ways to convince ourselves we're part of something that will outlast us. Religion, nationalism, even personal legacies all can serve this need. Here's the danger. When our immortality project feels threatened, the fear of death reawakens, and instead of facing it, we lash out at whatever or whoever we believe is endangering it. A political movement paints outsiders as a threat to our way of life. The people aren't just defending culture, they're defending a symbolic shield against mortality. That's why compromise feels impossible. It's not just politics, it's survival. On a personal scale, think of the colleague who always needs to be right, to be admired. Criticism doesn't just hurt their ego, it shakes their sense of lasting worth. To protect it, they might humiliate others or sabotage careers. How do you try to make yourself feel immortal? What happens when someone questions those foundations? Do you defend your values, or are you defending your fear of death without realizing it? Could some of your strongest moral reactions actually be fear reactions? Notice when your strongest anger is triggered. Ask yourself if mortality anxiety could be hiding underneath. Journal about the values or projects that make you feel bigger than death, and how they influence your behavior. Practice short meditations confronting impermanence, instead of instantly distracting yourself from it. When you feel defensive, pause and ask, am I protecting truth or my own symbolic safety? Liam grew up in a devout religious community. His faith gave him comfort, a story where he was part of something eternal. But when his friend Chloe left the faith and questioned its teachings, Liam didn't just feel sadness, he felt rage. In his mind, she was betraying the truth. But in reality, her choice was pulling at the threads of his immortality project. The rage wasn't about Chloe, it was about the cold wind of death seeping through a crack he'd worked hard to seal. When we deny death, we still have to do something with the fear. Becker observed that one of humanity's oldest tricks is scapegoating, finding an external monster to carry the burden for us. By imagining that all the danger, all the corruption, all the death is out there in them, we convince ourselves we can be safe by destroying them. Historically, entire groups, minorities, foreigners, heretics have been painted as existential threats. Purging them was framed as restoring purity, but the deeper psychological function was erasing a reminder of our own vulnerability. In everyday life, think of how an office team can unite in hostility toward one member. That person becomes the problem, the source of all tension. Removing them is seen as the cure, while the deeper, shared fears remain untouched. Who or what do you treat as the embodiment of danger? Could they be carrying some part of your disowned fear? If they vanished, would your deeper anxiety really disappear? When you catch yourself demonizing someone, ask, what human fear am I projecting onto them? Seek out conversations with people you've mentally labeled as dangerous or wrong, and listen without defending. Reflect on whether eliminating the monster would actually resolve the deeper threat you feel. Consider how your group's unity might rely on having an enemy, and what would happen if you let that go. During a period of economic hardship, a small town blames all its problems on a single immigrant family. Rumors spread, hostility grows, and eventually the family is forced to leave. Months later, the economy hasn't improved, but people feel lighter. They've pushed the weight of their own insecurity onto someone else. The monster is gone, but so is the opportunity to face the truth together. Becker's idea of transference of evil is even darker. We don't just see others as dangerous, we pour our own repressed impulses into them. If you've ever been disgusted by cruelty, yet later caught yourself acting cruel, you've felt the edge of this. We offload our unacceptable thoughts, selfish desires, or latent aggression onto someone else, then feel justified in attacking them as if we're fighting evil itself. A politician who secretly bends rules accuses opponents of corruption. By making them the embodiment of dishonesty, he cleanses himself in public eyes and perhaps in his own. A partner who struggles with jealousy accuses the other of being too flirty, not seeing that their accusation hides their own insecurity and desire for control. When you feel morally superior, could you be avoiding something in yourself? Are there traits you despise in others that you secretly fear in yourself? How would you treat someone differently if you saw them as carrying your shadow? Keep a shadow journal, write down the traits in others that trigger you most, and explore where they might live in you. When you accuse, pause. Are you describing them or confessing indirectly? Instead of trying to destroy the evil in others, experiment with recognizing it in yourself first. An activist spends years fighting greedy corporations, but in their own organization, they hoard resources, dismiss dissent, and avoid transparency. In calling out greed out there, they never had to face it in their own heart. If denial fuels evil, then the antidote is not more control, more purity, or more enemies. It's facing death itself. Becker's insight is simple but radical. The more we accept our mortality, the less we need to project fear onto others. Facing death doesn't mean morbid obsession. It means living with the awareness that life is fragile and letting that awareness soften us, not harden us. Hospice workers often describe how being near death daily strips away petty hostilities. You stop needing to prove yourself in ways that hurt others. A person who has survived a serious illness might stop wasting energy on grudges because they know firsthand how brief life is. How would you treat people differently if you truly accepted you'll die? Would some of your enemies lose their power over you? Could you forgive more easily or fear less? Engage in safe but honest conversations about death with friends or family. Read or watch stories from people facing terminal illness to expand your perspective. Try a death reflection meditation. Imagine your last day and what would still matter. Revisit conflicts. Ask if they're worth the limited time you have. An elderly artist named Kai loses his closest friend. In the weeks that follow, he notices how the quarrels and rivalries in his art circle feel absurd. Death has reminded him, life is too short to create more monsters. Zooming out, Becker's message is a warning and an invitation. The warning: evil is not an alien force. It's a distorted expression of our own fear of death. The invitation: by confronting mortality, we can stop feeding the cycle of projection, scapegoating, and transference. In a world drowning in moral battles, this insight is revolutionary. It suggests the fight against evil begins with an inner act of courage. To look death in the eye and say, I won't use you as an excuse to harm. Let's recap. Death denial can be the seed of destructive behavior. Scapegoating turns our fear into an enemy out there. Transference of evil offloads our shadow onto others. Facing death directly can disarm this entire cycle. Your takeaway: evil doesn't just come from bad people. It can grow quietly from your own unexamined fear. The tool to fight it isn't more outrage. It's more honesty about life's limits. So here's your challenge. This week, notice when you feel the urge to condemn, to push someone into the monster box. Pause. Ask, what part of my fear is in them? And then do the harder thing: face that fear directly. Because maybe, just maybe, the most powerful way to fight evil is to stop creating it. The ideas explored in this video are for philosophical and psychological exploration and are not intended as professional advice. Viewers are encouraged to engage in their own critical thinking and further research, and to consult with qualified professionals for personal concerns.